good time, having a good time. Shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the law.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle. We are one of 46,000 Rotary clubs in the world, spread throughout 62 countries. I'm Nancy Cahill, the current president of Seattle Rotary, nicknamed Seattle 4. We begin our meeting with music and some inspiring words. Our music today will be led by Don Murphy and accompanied by Freeman Fong, followed by an inspiration by Faith Ireland.
It's an audible play call. I'm going to support Don with this.
Actually, it's the other way around. He is the general.
Well, we have the first team pianist. Freeman, stand up, let him see your uniform there. He's dressed for the occasion. I don't know if he's going to try to be an early leaver today or not, but my, oh my, it is. You know, it really is. It's springtime and it's time for baseball. And today we're going to open with one of my favorites. But I learned in the run up to today's meeting that this song is a year older than our Rotary Club. I also learned on the radio this morning that the Mariners need our support. So rather than try to teach you the verse, we're going to sing the refrain twice. Okay. And the second time, so they'll hear us at T-Mobile Park where they're getting ready to take the mound. All right, Freeman, please. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Mariners. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the ball game. Now that we've had a warm up, okay, let's sing it like you really mean it, okay? All right, sir. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out in the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Mariners. They don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Well done.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased today to do the inspiration. And today we're going to look at what we're here for. And you can be seated if you like. I'd like everyone who is registered to vote to raise your hand. Yeah. Pretty good group. Yeah. Okay. I was born 9 months after Pearl Harbor. My dad joined the Navy and was in the South Pacific and the Korean War. Patriotism was burned into my childhood. Raise your hand if you stood in school every day for the Pledge of Allegiance. A lot of us, especially older ones. RCW 28A 230.140 requires the U.S. flag to be displayed during school hours except during inclement weather. It requires, quote, appropriate flag exercises. The pledge is to be at the opening of all school assemblies. Students not reciting are to be in, quote, respectful silence. At times, our sense of patriotism has actually caused us to react in ways such as demonstrations. For example, for civil rights. For example, against the Vietnam War. I'm happy that we have the Secretary of State today here. And one of those who especially appreciates the office of the Secretary of State is one who has had to run for local or statewide election. In my case, you'll see me here, and I am filing to run for the Supreme Court a second time. While a Superior Court judge, I ran in 1994 and came in third out of 3. The second time in 1998, I came in first out of 7. I couldn't have won then without everything I learned the first time. Especially in recent years, the importance of election integrity is at the forefront of patriotism. Patriotism is defined as devotion and support for one's country. That is, one's country, not one's party. Regardless of party, our first duty is to vote and be heard. We know by all the hands raised that most of you are registered. Will you vote? Who else will you encourage or help to be registered and vote? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith, for your inspiration. And thanks, Don and Jimmy and Freeman, for getting us in the baseball spirit. Do you know how the 7th inning stretch came about? Nancy's little trivia information. Well, on April 14th, 1910, President William Howard Taft threw out the traditional first pitch in Washington, D.C. in a game against the Philadelphia Athletics. During the 7th inning, President Taft decided to stand up to stretch his legs. Those around him and in the stadium, in being a sign of respect and honor to their president, all stood in unison while he stretched. It took them a little while to adopt that song from 1908, but they knew when they had that 7th inning stretch, it was going to be part of tradition, and they just have to find the right song so that all the people didn't just stand and stretch and not have anything to do. So that's why we sing, that's why we stretch and enjoy the 7th inning. So you've got something to tell someone later this afternoon back at the office. Our meeting reporter today is Pete Delaney, and Mary Goldie is hosting our Zoom participants. So thank you both. This is our chance to welcome our guests today. As I read your name, please stand and remain standing until I introduce all the guests. We have some prospective new members here. We have Rebecca Abadi. She's a pediatric nurse practitioner at Multicare Health Systems. We have Todd Beckett, a principal software development engineer at Microsoft. We have Amy Smith, a guest of Fedford Dickman and Stephen Morse. She's acting chief of the City of Seattle Community Assistance Response and Engagement, also known as the CARE team. We have some guests of members. We have Judy Yu, who is a guest of Julie Kang. We have Stephanie Prentice, who is a guest of Steve Hobbs. We have Kate Jacobs, a guest of Steve Hobbs. We have Julio Richburg, a guest of Marcia Mutisi. We have Merle Smith, a guest of Pilgrim Africa, which is one of our corporate members. And the visiting Rotarian coming all the way from Bangalore, India, is Sandeep Rastogi. So welcome. Thank you, all you guests and visitors. We're glad to have you here with us. And Eric Christensen, the head of our club sustainability committee, has an update about an upcoming opportunity to explore the Elwha River. And then Joel Padgett will introduce our newest Rotarian.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the club's Environmental Sustainability Committee and the District 5030 Environmental Sustainability Committee, I'd like to invite everyone to the Nature Bridge Elwha Exploration Day on May 4th. As you can see, at the last Exploration Day, we had a number of Rotarians from around the district who joined us. And so what is the Exploration Day? Well, first, it's conducted by Nature Bridge. You say, what is Nature Bridge? Nature Bridge you may know it for its previous name, Olympic Park Institute, but Nature Bridge conducts scientific-based environmental education on campus in Olympic National Park for several thousand school-age students every year. Why the Elwha? Well, as you probably know, 10 years ago, the Elwha dams were removed, and since the river ecosystem has undergone rather amazing transformation and restoration aimed at restoring the salmon runs and restoring the culture of the lower Elwha Qualum tribe. This will occur on May 4th. You need to sign up. Information is in the bulletin. It will cost you $10, but for that $10, you get lunch. You get a guided tour by one of the Nature Bridge educators who will show you scientific analysis of water quality, habitat quality, and some of the other parameters that are leading to the restoration of the Elwha's great salmon runs. And you'll get a detailed look at the river, including the remarkable transformation of at the mouth of the river, where the beach has gone from cobbles to a huge sandy beach in the last 10 years as the river has been unleashed. So please sign up. You need to sign up in advance. And as I said, information is in your bulletin. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce our newest member, who's standing right beside me. And she is Bobby Nickel, and she is under the classification of marketing and public relations. And her sponsor is Michael Woody, who's right down here in front, and he is part of Visit Seattle, who we thank. So thank you very much. Bobby, I better put my help me put my glasses on probably, right? One time I just left them down on the table. I think we have a couple slides to begin with this section. Bobby cares deeply about Greater Seattle community, so she has the perfect position of public affairs manager at Visit Seattle. In her position, she gets to explain to the media, the government, and the community members the impact that visitors to Seattle have on Seattle. Her office is conveniently located in the convention center at 7th and Pike Street. And if you haven't been there, you should go and visit, right? So we have those pictures up. Okay, then Bobby is a native of San Clemente, California, and a graduate at UCLA, majoring in English and creative writing. And her career began in Los Angeles as an associate producer at it's HLN, that's CNN's sister channel. She went on to New York City to be a segment producer for MSNBC. Then she came to the Pacific Northwest to be the executive producer at Q13 or Fox 13 News for 2+ years. But then she was hired by Visit Seattle to help promote Seattle. So yay for Seattle. Bobby loves to talk about politics and the changes in politics landscape. Another focus is what's happening with public transportation within the city. And we have another set of pictures here about her new place. She would love to spend more time gardening at her new place in White Center, but this probably will take place after her marriage to Lane Sion, okay, in September of 2024. Planning for a wedding does take a little bit of time, so she'll be working on that first. But please welcome Bobby Nickel, Classification, Marketing, and Public Relations.
So, Bobby, welcome. That pin that you have is a pin that connects you to the 1.6 million Rotarians. So wear it with pride. There's different things you can do. You can put it in your label like this. You can put it on your lapel. You can put it on your ankle, whatever works, okay? But we're so thrilled to have you, and you and Michael will help keep us informed on the Visit Seattle things that we need to be aware of, and we're just grateful for your presence in our group. Thank you. Thank you, Eric, also for filling us in on the Elwha tour opportunity. 2 years after the dam came down, Eric, I got a chance to see the impact that had already happened in those first 2 years. So I'm very excited to see the progress now after 10 years. So very exciting. Our Vice President of Programs, John Steckler, will introduce our main speaker. John.
Hey, thank you, fellow Rotarians. Boy, our main speaker today, Steve Hobbs. He's our 16th Secretary of State. He began his tenure when he was appointed in 2021, but he was elected by the people of Washington November of 2022. So, Secretary of State Hobbs, he leads the office responsible for managing state and local elections, also corporation and charity filings, also Washington State Library, also Washington State Archives, and just also a whole number of other community programs. Now, previously, he was the state senator for Washington's 44th legislative district. That's my district. And as a fellow elected official, I got a chance to get to know Mr. Hobbs. I was incredibly impressed by him. In politics, I feel you meet two people. One, public servant. The other, somebody waiting for a next photo opportunity. Well, Secretary of State Hobbs is definitely a humble servant of the people. He believes in making a difference in people's lives. He's also a lieutenant colonel in the Washington State National Guard. That gives you a little idea about him. He holds a master's degree in public administration, a bachelor's degree in political science from where else? Washington State University. Go Huskies. He's a very humble man. We are fortunate to have him here as our Secretary of State, and we're even more fortunate to have him speak with us today. So my fellow Rotarians, great pleasure to introduce to you today, Washington Secretary of State, Mr. Steve Hobbs.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. I am, just so you all know, I am a Rotarian. I am going to get a makeup out of this. Thank you very much. I come from the Lake Stevens Rotary, very tiny, about 40 people. We don't have a stage. We do offer coffee, so that's kind of cool. It's a morning one. We only have one Rotary in Lake Stevens. You have, what, 50 or so? You have a lot of Rotaries. But I want to start off, there's my little clicker, by talking about, obviously I'm a politician, so I'm going to talk about myself, obviously. But we want to know about the office because a lot of people don't know what the heck does the Secretary of State, what do they do? Who are they? Well, anyway, it's me. So I'm not going to read the slide to you because you can read, but just some other things that you may not know about is I have 3 boys that I raised along with my wife, and mostly my wife has raised them, actually. So she's an occupational therapist, and my 3 boys, 2 of which go to the University of Washington. My oldest boy is going to graduate this quarter, so that makes me very happy. So he needs to get a job, get out of the house, because I want to take his room. I've already claimed it. My youngest one also goes to the University of Washington, and both of them are members of the Washington State National Guard. Because I'm a public servant, I can't afford their tuition, so they're paying for their tuition. And by the way, if you're interested in joining the Guard, if you have kids, grandkids, let me know. I'll be more than happy to get them interested in the Guard, because we need more people. Plus, it pays for tuition. Also, my middle child is a child with special needs, Truman. Truman is very special to me. He also should be very special to you because he represented Washington State in the Special Olympics in Florida, where he earned the bronze medal in swimming for our state. That was pretty cool. Yay, Truman. The other thing too, just so you know, my mom came to this country in 1969, and she didn't know any English. I didn't know English. I like to tell people I was made in Japan, raised here, but we learned English together by watching Sesame Street. So if you're wondering why the ballot counts are slow, it's because I'm going 1, 2, Sometimes that joke doesn't fly because I tried that with these high school kids. They didn't know what the heck Sesame Street was. But looking at all of you, I'm pretty sure you know what Sesame Street is. So this is the mission statement of our vision of our office, but let's go in the meatier details here. Let's talk about the state seal and how that is actually the original part of my job. That's all I had. Was keeper of the state seal and the secretary, because that's why they're called secretaries. You literally take notes and save this stuff. But the state seal is important because it goes on important documents. Things are not official until the state seal goes on it. Other states have it. True story, the Nisqually earthquake happened many years ago, and Gary Locke was the governor. He tried to mobilize the National Guard and declare a state of emergency. He could not do that. Why? Because the state seal was located in the Secretary of State's office, and they had evacuated the building. So they had to escort Sam Reed into the building to put the seal on it to declare a state of emergency. So there you go. You learned a little bit of trivia right there. Divisions. I have 8 divisions in the office. I have around 300 employees, and that fluctuates all the way to about 350 employees when election season is going on. The first one is archives. So my archives division is exactly that, right? We keep all the documents. We have, if you were born in the state of Washington, we have your birth certificate. We have your marriage certificates. We have your divorce decrees. Some of you have multiple divorce decrees that we have in the office. We also do other cool things like we tell the story of Washington State, the heritage of Washington State. So we put out books. We put out displays. These displays go around across the state. Displays like celebrating this year, the 10th anniversary of marriage equality in the state of Washington. A book that just came out from the Secretary of State's office is the Bolt decision, if any of you remember that. Next year, all right, it might be this year, later on, we'll be celebrating. Some of you may not remember this, but I believe it is the 50th anniversary of refugees coming from Southeast Asia and how our state was willing to take on these refugees. And so we'll be celebrating that along with, because I'm a big nerd, we'll be celebrating the nerd pop culture of Washington State because we make Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering. We also have a very healthy video game industry here. Also, if you're interested in UFOs and aliens, Washington State Archives has a lot of history of that. And you're wondering, why do we have that? Well, that's because back in the day, there used to be called the Cold War, and there was civil defense, and every state had to record and track unidentified flying objects. So if you're a UFO aficionado, come on down, check it out. Maybe you'll find an alien or two. I don't know. Okay, next up is our library. So I own the library, the physical library in Tumwater. We also have libraries in each of our prisons, and I own the library, and those are my employees. We also have a library in the 2 state hospitals, and we just did this when I took office. I said, we have a library facilities, and the answer was no, which is really weird because we've always had them in the prison. So we started up doing that in the youth detention facilities, and in Echo Glen, when we opened it up, 75% of the kids there checked out a book. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. We're doing more with our libraries because I wanted to do more with our libraries. I felt like it shouldn't be just about checking out books. So one of the things we're starting to do is if we see a promising inmate worker, if they're doing well and they're about a year out from release, we're going to put them on a path to a job that can work at the Secretary of State's office when they're released. The other thing we're doing is we're doing civics education. So if inmates are about 6 to a year out from release, we'll conduct classes on civics education, getting them ready to be a productive member of society, getting them registered to vote, letting them know how a bill becomes a law, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I'm doing is combining my love of nerd culture, that Dungeons and Dragons I told you about, which is made here in the state of Washington, which we had to deal with Wizards of the Coast and others, where we are reaching out to our rural libraries so that there is a game library there so that kids have a place to go to, a safe place to go to. And we did that in Yakima, and I somehow convinced Curtis King, a state senator there, to play Dungeons and Dragons with me. He didn't want to do it at first, but he had a lot of fun at the end. The other thing I've got is corporations and charities. So an LLC, charities, nonprofit, we do all that. We also are establishing satellite offices, which we have never done before. And we also do international relations. So we do trade missions. We're going to Japan here in a couple of weeks, bringing, yes, my nerd culture, game designers over to Japan to try to get into the Japanese market. Also, we'll be talking to our aerospace companies out there. We also do reverse trade missions. So we will actually bring delegations. In fact, Taiwan is here. Right. So and it was Korea. No, they had COVID. Yeah, they had COVID. They couldn't come. So Japan, Taiwan. I think that was the only two. Yeah, it was. Well, we had a good time. So we visited different orchards and wineries. It's hard work being a government official. We also visited the fruit processing facility because they need to know that we take care of our products here, that it's clean and safe. Also, we're trying to convince the Japanese to lift the frozen blueberry tariff. Yes, there's a frozen blueberry tariff and it affects our farmers. I don't think I was successful, but we're getting there. The other thing I want to save is the elections division because that's the one where I get the most headaches, stress, keeps me up at night. But the elections division has not that many employees, yet it obviously is a big part of our state. Now, just to remind all you, it's the 39 counties that do most of the work, at the legwork. It's our job, the Secretary of State's office, to certify the elections, provide the training, and provide the support. Now, this is where it's gonna take a little longer in this particular division, because when I took office in 21, obviously we had something that happened in 2020, January 6th, right? And then not only did it happen in our nation's capital, it happened in our own state capital as well. We deployed the National Guard. I know this because my soldiers were deployed to the state capital. And unfortunately, elections now are a thing. They used to be boring, right? They used to be, oh, they're just taken for granted. Well, that was the wrong thing, right? That was the wrong thing for us. I talk about this with other secretaries of state. We do a really good job at telling you when to vote. Put the ballot in the mail. Put the ballot in the drop box. What we don't do is tell you, hey, did you know you can go actually see the election process going on in your county auditor's office? Did you know the tabulation machines are not connected to the internet? Did you know that if you move to another state and we're part of this ERIC system, the Electronic Registration Information Center, that we will know if you register there. We know if you vote twice in the same election. Why? Because we have actually caught people who have done that, right? It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. We also catch people, have you ever heard the myth? Dead people voting, right? Sometimes it happens, right? It's very rare, but usually the reason why it happens is because a loved one voted for their spouse that just recently passed away. That's usually what happens 99% of the time. And also we catch people that, and this happens, is where your kids vote, they're old enough to vote, they're in your house, and they forget to sign the envelope, and then the mom and dad signs the envelope. We catch that, and the reason why every signature is checked. See, a lot of people don't know that. By the way, back to the dead people voting, this is very important. So if you sign your ballot and drop in the drop box and you keel over dead right there, it still counts because you were alive when you voted. So this is why you vote early. So this is why you vote early. And by the way, that's the way I want to go out. If I'm going to go out, right? You can't control your destiny, right? But if I'm going to go out, I tell you what, wouldn't that be awesome if I just put it in there and then keeled over right there? That's right. Yeah, that's right. Know my audience. That's right. Some of you really need to vote early. Anyway, I'm not going to say who. I just lost a couple of votes, unfortunately. Hey, so look, in all seriousness, elections are the big thing. Secretary of States now have to attend security clearance. I have to get security clearances and do classified briefings with Homeland Security and the FBI. It's on a regular basis. When I got in there, we had an out brief with the last Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, and she told me about the cybersecurity problems that we had. That's why she created a cybersecurity cell, and our office had to double it. She talked about misinformation, which her office could not handle at the time because it had been such a big deal and it was kind of quick and not really a thing. So I created a division that deals with misinformation, primarily combating it with telling the truth and telling people, like I just told you about the ERIC and all these other systems. But when I got in there, it didn't take that long before misinformation crept in, because within a few weeks, I started getting emails and notices that a misinformation campaign was being directed at a device called an Albert sensor. Now, you don't have to be computer experts, but basically an Albert sensor is a warning device that you connect to your system. It tells you, it warns you when a bunch of data is coming from a suspicious IP address. King County has an Albert sensor. So let's say a bunch of data came from Russia, a Russian IP address, that'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it? That'd be kind of weird. Or if it went out to a Russian IP address. Well, guess what? This misinformation campaign was saying the Albert sensor is tied to George Soros, looks at metadata, alters elections. None of this is true. None of it. But it was so effective that 3 counties removed their sensor. One county, Ferry County, unanimously voted, all 3 commissioners voted it, did not tell the county auditor, did not tell the IT specialist. So I was notified by the county auditor. And so I did an emergency meeting, brought the county auditors, the commissioners, had Homeland Security there, FBI, had Kim Wyman, had our commander of the Air Force cyber defense as part of the Washington National Guard, to let these folks know, do not remove the sensor. It is an important device, is part of the layered defense. Unfortunately, that did not work. They kept it on. And to make matters worse, 6 weeks later, I was notified by U.S. Cyber Command. That's a military command that protects the United States from cyber threats. And they told me that they had identified 6 Russian IP addresses that state and local governments were transmitting data to. Now, I see all your faces. You're like, oh my God, it's horrible. Look, we're winning. We're winning. And don't worry, we are winning. Okay, we are winning. In fact, I'm glad I do these. And in fact, I spend more time at other people's Rotaries than my own Rotary, because it's a chance for me to tell you a little bit about elections. And so that you know that if you have a question or you have a concern, it's probably going to be addressed, but you can just ask. Go ask your county auditor. You can ask the Secretary of State's office as well. Because right now, I am deputizing every single one of you as defenders of democracy. And your job at the next family gathering, I would say 4th of July, sometimes you gather with your family, okay? So that crazy brother or uncle that shows up, oh, you know who they are. You know who they are. Maybe they spend too much time on social media, maybe one particular channel and for news. I'm not going to say what, but maybe they're spouting off crazy stuff. Hey, look, I'm not asking you to break a relationship or confront them, but maybe you might say, hey, Bill, just so you know, dead people, they are found, right? And then there's something called ERIC, like electronic register. In fact, let me go call Steve, right? You don't have to call me. Don't call me, but call Julie Wise, your county elections person. But the point is that there is an answer for a lot of this. You just got to go look for it. And we got to do a better job. We have done a bad job telling you all this stuff, because how many here knew about Eric? And nobody knew about it. Some of you did, but most of you didn't. Or Albert, right? And unfortunately, Eric is being hit with the same misinformation that Albert is being hit. And that's why some states have removed themselves from it. So this is what I'm dealing with right now. I am dealing with not only our own people in the United States who have this belief about elections and put more trust into a person that makes pillows than cybersecurity experts. That's what I'm dealing with right now, and I got to try to put that genie back in the bottle. But the other thing I'm dealing with, and is more serious, is I have to deal with overseas malign actors like Russia, like China, like Iran, like other terrorist groups, because they are constantly threatening the United States. They do not care if you're a Republican or Democrat. They just want to tear us apart and disrupt this country. And that is what I'm dealing with at that level. Thank you very much. So that's elections. Yay. I don't know what else we got here. We got other programs. Well, we got to make sure that there's enough time for questions. So we're going to blow through all of this, because that's not important. And we'll just get to this. And any questions that you might have, I'm willing to answer or not. I don't know. Oh, okay, great. Okay.
A good amount of time.
All right. Love to answer. Oh, yeah.
We're so on time today that I wasn't even out of my chair yet. I apologize. David.
Hi, and considering all the challenges that you have with the election system, is it very challenging to find election workers? And what do you do about it, considering that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The great thing about this state, because it's a mail-in ballot state, it's volunteer. We don't need as many volunteers as a state that has poll workers, but the threats have increased quite a bit. In fact, Secretary Wyman was threatened with her life. The auditor in Thurston County was threatened with her life. We've had harassment of election workers. That's why we had to pass this year a bill to make it a Class C felony to go after people that harass. It is hard to bring up, to have people work in elections. Yeah.
Question here from Assunta Singh. Assunta Ing.
It's not actually a question for the first one. It's a request. February, I was at his office and it was a really cool office because it collected all the really unique souvenirs and pictures and gifts and all that. And you don't own them, right?
I
But
do.
no.
I don't. I own most of it. You're talking about
You
like
do?
the Thor's hammer, Captain
okay.
America shield, and all that. That's all
That's
mine.
my request.
Okay.
My
right.
request is that please give an open invitation to our fellow Rotarians. So when they go to the Capitol, they can visit your office because
yeah.
he collected many cool stuff in his office.
I have a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, my favorite collection actually is the Marvel Wolverine series. Anyone collect comic books here? You probably won't admit it. Okay, so in the 80s, so Frank Miller and Chris Claremont did the Wolverine miniseries, which is worth a lot of money. So it's in my office. You should check it out. So yeah. We also, well, we have
I
that.
have a
Well, but
question.
that's not as exciting.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that's not as
if
exciting.
you're done, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, you're running again this year, so I know that you have some opponents.
Ooh.
So how tough will the election be for you?
I feel a little awkward because I'm a Rotarian, but I would just say my races have already been horrible. Yes, it's always been horrible, but I'll make it. If not, I am in LinkedIn. So yeah.
Love the optimism. We've got a question here from David.
Hi there. And actually it's one is a thanks and two is just a data point for your office. So data point first, as a director of a nonprofit organization, I had to go online and recertify our organization. Happened like that. It's so quick now compared to the way it used to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Because it was paper
Oh
just
my
a few months
goodness,
ago.
it was
Yeah.
so painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for putting that system in. The other is a thank you for thinking, you mentioned COVID 2020.
Mhm.
And thank you from the hunger relief community for the work that you did to mobilize the National Guard.
Oh,
In all of the work that the National Guard did, that became such an important part when hunger relief organizations lost volunteers all across Washington state. The work you did and the work that the Guards men and women did was just critical to keeping those doors open. So thanks for that work.
thank you very much. Yeah, I was, it's funny. I remember getting called up for orders like, hey, you gotta be activated. You're going to build up the small task force to run these food banks. And it says, don't worry, it's only 30 days. Only 30 days. And I had 100 soldiers. It grew to 750 soldiers. I had most of the west side of the state. I've been deployed to Kosovo and Iraq, and I've got 34 years of military experience and deployed and everything. But I tell you, that was the most rewarding to do that. And it was about a year and a half to command these soldiers. And it was just a weird situation too, because my son was one of my soldiers, which was not good for him at all. It was really great for me though.
I have to very quickly say before Kathy has a question, I
Mhm.
just had to update the Secretary of State for an organization I'm far too involved in, and it did not go very quickly. So I want to know what happened with mine. Kathy has a question. over there.
Okay, next question over here
Mhm.
from Admiral Bill Center.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Our past president, Ralph Monroe, would be very proud of the way you represent your office. Doing a great job. I have a question that I get from my friends around the country that don't have the benefit of living in a state where we have 100% vote by mail. And they ask me, well, how do you know that it's safe and secure? What do you think are the key ingredients that I could tell them that make our system so reliable that we can have an election for governor that's decided by 100 votes and people still have confidence in the system?
Now that it's eroded a little bit because of 2020, but for the most part, it's because I think it helps that we've done it for so long. a lot earlier than other states. It was actually proposed by Ralph Monroe. I mean, it was done by Republicans, which also helps quite a bit for legitimacy. Also, it's just the transparency of all. I mean, if you can just go to your county auditor's office and see the process going on with your own eyes, I think that helps quite a bit.
We've got a question from Jim.
Thank you for being here and thank you for maintaining a sense of integrity and trust in our election process. Talk to us about the recent election where we had to pick a party. What happens to the independents? Don't they get shut out?
Yes, thank you for that. So the presidential primary is the worst time for a Secretary of State because everyone's angry with them. So I just want to put this out. This is very important, okay? Presidential primaries are a party nomination process. And I know it's hard for you all to hear that, but it's hard for me to hear it, but it's true. And so backed by law and by Supreme Court decisions, it's the party nomination process. And so that's why, unfortunately, we had to put the party, you had to check a box, right? I know that you were angry about it because I heard it a lot in my own grocery store. So I get it. But the problem is that all this is, by the way, it's public record anyway for about 60 days. And then that is deleted off the system. The parties receive this information. And if you were to go in a polling state, you would have to sign your name to get a Republican or Democratic ballot. And it's the same in other states. You're recording who you are, Republican or Democrat. Both parties, they just don't want people to cross over. I don't know why we can't just say, hey, if I vote for Joe Biden or I vote for Donald Trump, I belong to that party, right? You would think it'd be that simple, but it isn't. And they don't want to do that way. And unfortunately, that's the way I got to do it. Now, we have thought about hiding that check mark in another ballot or another envelope. But the problem is you have your ballot, you have the security envelope, then you have your return envelope, but then you need another envelope, and that'd be 3 envelopes. And I don't know if we can do that. So I'm sorry. You're gonna be mad again in 4 years, but hopefully you'll forget about it next month. That's what I'm hoping.
All right.
We are
Next
working-
question here from Justice Faith Ireland.
I just have a comment and with a question, and that is, I had to fill out my LLC. It's just me. I'm the only person. And there was also a notice from you all that we had to file nationally now. And so I got that and I went to where you directed me and I filled that one out, which was not so simple. But you might want to comment on that for the benefit of anybody else who actually is a corporation.
Yeah, there are several laws that got enacted recently that we're trying to deal with, and it would be nice to just be one fill out a form and it'd be done. Maybe we can get to that point. We are constantly trying to catch up with new laws that came up. You were talking about the nonprofit when you did it paper, and then now it's online. We had to do it. It was online before the paper, and then became paper because the legislature passed a law. We're notorious for doing that where we don't think about these things because I was a legislator once and I probably voted for that law before I became Secretary of State. But it caused a ripple effect where it's like, well, we can't implement these on our system because it's really old and you don't give us money. So we're gonna have to go to paper. And so this is kind of an example of that. And I apologize. Hopefully we can play catch up and get to a system where it's a lot easier for you.
The system was fine. It was the national one that wasn't.
Those bastards. Yeah.
All right, we've got a question from.
All right, John.
I'm glad that we did it right though. So yeah.
Yeah, you should take a run as governor, really, because you are so honest and pure. It's lovely to hear. That's not my comment, though. I'm curious about artificial intelligence and the role that it is playing in both in fear in our election process, but also I understand your office is using it as an asset in elections. So could you speak to that?
Yes. So AI terrifies me. All right. It really does. Should terrify you. It was used as a weapon during the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. They did an AI generated Zelensky telling their armed forces to put down their weapons. It was almost convincing, but luckily people were able to notify, shut it down, and that didn't happen. The armed forces, and they keep fighting. And I knew then it's like, this is going to be a problem. And so, and being in those classified briefings, so we passed a law to I wanted to ban deepfakes outright and create a way to penalize social media companies from putting putting up AI generated ads or untrue. And I just couldn't do it because social media companies and media networks, they have very powerful lobbyists. So instead I did something else, and you have to have disclosure, and there's a private right of action, which I was able to put on it. So it's a one-step deal to multiple steps where I can get to where I want to be. But AI is a double-edged sword. It's not all evil. It can also be used for good. And so with social media, in order for me to figure out what is being said, what's the trends out there so I can combat it with the truth, I hired a third-party vendor called Logically. And that company's job, what it does is scans all social media, and it sends us a report on what the trends are. So for example, if I get a report that says, hey, the tabulation machines are being hacked, then I know that I would combat that by putting word out on my social media and telling the networks and working with nonprofits to let people know that, hey, you can't hack in the tabulation machines because they're not connected to the internet. So that's the way we use that system. Unfortunately, I'm being criticized probably because it's an election year, that this system is surveilling surveilling Americans, and I'm a bad, evil person. Look, here's the deal. People are doing they're doing a Facebook post, or they're doing on X, and people can publicly see that. So I'm not surveilling anybody, right? We're just pulling the information off the internet through a scanning process and figuring out the trend lines are, because that's the only way that I'm going to know what's going on so I can tell people, right? Because if you don't know, then you're going to make assumptions about the election that can be very dangerous. And that's why we have January 6th. So if there's a way for me to know ahead of time and then put the word out, what's really happening, then I think that's a good thing. The other thing that we do is we scan for threats. And so like we've already saw a couple of threats targeted at me. So that's what we do with Logically AI. So we use AI to kind of combat the AI, because the nation state actors out there, Russia, they have entire departments. Purpose is to pepper our country with misinformation using social media. And on the one thing that we have to do is have social media common sense. That's what we really need, because unfortunately people our age and older that mostly use Facebook, by the way, our kids and grandkids use other social media platforms, but we tend to retweet and share information instantaneously without taking the time to looking what the message is, because that's what you really need to do. Is this message true? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying take a minute. Maybe confer it with other news sources. Okay, I saw this on CNN and Fox, so I'm going to go ahead and this is true. And is that person a real person? Or are they a bot? Are they in St. Petersburg? I mean, you really don't know. Also, be careful what your friend requests are. And by the way, here's a fun fact. Go check out your friends' Facebook friends. It's kind of scary. There are people that do friend requests to you just to get information from you. So be careful, because I looked at my friends and I noticed it was mostly young women. All right. Look, guys are most susceptible to that. They're not into you. Look at yourself. Okay. All right. Why is this strange young woman friend requesting you? Right. Think about that. All right. You don't know this person. Right. Come on.
And we're not all filled with existential dread now. We've got time for one more very quick question from Bob.
All right, this is an easy one. I need a little history lesson. There's a few years back, the federal government wanted to consolidate the records, and I really never heard how that all ended up. I think they were going to close the Sandpoint Archives facility. How did that all play out?
It hasn't affected our office at all. So we haven't been asked to send anything to the federal government or anything like that. I know that we have been slowly trying to digitize everything, which is a bit of a challenge because we have stuff that goes back to the territorial days of our state government. So it's really hard. to do that. And I know the federal government's doing the same thing. But other than that, that's all the information I have on that.
So we have time for a rapid fire question that's going to come from me. I know we have a lot of people that need to get to the ballots early so they don't keel over. But what does your office do to empower youth so when they become of voting age, they are informed citizens and make appropriate decisions?
So what we do is we actively we put out our information through social media. You'll see me running around the different news agencies and social media outlets. We try to talk to them. But we also work very closely with our 39 county auditors because really they do the lion's share of the work. And quite frankly, you don't want me to be the face of elections in a red county, right? So I work with my county auditors in those counties, and all of them are great to put the word out about elections. You can also visit sos.wa.gov. You can also visit votewa.gov to check out the latest news and elections and update your elections. By the way, you should sign up for text messaging, text alerts, because you can do that now. So you go in there into votewa.gov and you can have you set up for text messaging. The reason why this is important is sometimes your ballot gets rejected, right? And so you'll know immediately versus before where you get a letter in the mail and maybe it comes to you, but you don't have enough time to do anything about it. And so I encourage you to definitely do that. All right.
Can you stay here for a second?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So Steve, thank you so much for your sharing and candor with us. And we have made a gift in your honor to Harvest Against Hunger, a great organization that we love to support, of 600 portions of nutrient-dense produce. So in your name. So we just thank you. And that also includes a gift card to come back and have lunch with us sometime because we are a more fun Rotary Club than yours. Sorry. Sorry. We can tell you're having fun today. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
So if you
I
feel
am,
like,
but
and that way you
you
don't have
fed
the
me.
pressure. We
Yeah.
fed him. Yes.
I just get coffee at mine. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. We are grateful for two sponsors that we have. We have Joel Farrell and we have Bloodworks Northwest. I want to give a plug for making donations to Bloodworks Northwest. It is an initiative of Rotary District 5030. So be a donor. When you go donate, tell them you're donating on behalf of Rotary District 5030. And we've just had a lot fewer donations post-pandemic. People got out of the habit of doing that. So if you can't donate, tell your friends that can, and it's just really important. So John Steckler has a few announcements for us.
A second round of applause. I don't deserve it, but I love it. So I got a few announcements to go through. First of all, Wednesday, April 10th, evening meeting. It's going to be at the Rotary Boys and Girls Club from 6 to 7:30. It's a great opportunity to get a special tour and visit to this wonderful facility. You know, this thing was created, the Rotary Boys and Girls Club was created in 1944 by us, Seattle Rotary. So it's a very proud product and contribution to our community. That Saturday, we're going to go back to Rotary Boys and Girls Club from 9 to 12 p.m. and you get to help clean it up. Yeah, working with the kids, and also the Rotary Boys and Girls Club Advisory Board will be there as well. So it's a great place to interconnect with the two of them. So recommend both of those events. Let's see, how about, Wednesday, April 17th, our next lunch meeting will be here at the Westin. And it is our annual diplomacy meeting put together by our very own David Woodward. Thank you very much, David. I can't see very much past the letters on my page. I don't know if you're here, but he puts this together and brings in all of the diplomats from various countries. And it's a very exciting meeting. So definitely put that on your calendar. And that Saturday, April 20th, hey, this is what I need, a lithium ion battery recycling event from 9 a.m. to 3:30. It's a combination with Rotary District 5030. We're going to be, our Environmental Sustainability Committee is collecting rechargeable items at donation sites across, and we're looking for Seattle Fort Rotarians to volunteer for a 2-hour stint and or recycle at our center. That's going to be at the Goodwill Donation Center on 1400 South Lane Street. So 1400 you get all this online. Okay, what else? Wednesday, May 1st, May Day. Our next lunch meeting after the next one, so two from now, will be Rob Dunlop from Cascade PBS, but as we know it, KCTS Channel 9. He's going to talk about what's happening with public broadcasting, what's happening with KCTS. As you all know, they did move from the studio we built for them many, many years ago. So I'm sure that'll be a main topic. That'll be a good one to come to. And then one of those things that also is a stalwart event. Go to the next slide because I will hopefully, oh, well, we don't get a beautiful picture of her, but our very own Fedva Dickman is putting together another one of her ethnic dinners. And this will be at the No Thai Cuisine Lake, Green Lake. And, you know, can't think of anything else to say about that, but thank you, Fedva, for doing those. They're great, great events. A lot of fun. And besides, the food's always great too. And then I was going to tell you about the Elwha exploration. And there it is on the slide. You can scan that, but I couldn't tell you anything more than what Eric has already told you. $10 event. It's a small charge. I hear the banana bread alone is worth the $10 that you get when you get there, besides the lunch and the tour itself. So definitely sign up for that. Thank you all. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan.
That's great. If you haven't been to the Rotary Boys and Girls Club, in addition to us being responsible for it back in 80 years ago, that's pretty amazing. An important thing to think about is what role it served during the pandemic. We had a lot of kids dropped off there at 6 in the morning. Many of their parents were frontline workers working throughout the pandemic. And they'd have a breakfast there. They'd get some tutoring. They'd get a chance to exercise. They'd have lots of wonderful, responsible adults taking concern for their education and their well-being. And it's, even though they're back in school now, the foundation was really set for this being an incredible social safety net for the kids, our club having such an impact on the lives of these kids. And why I'm getting choked up is